Israel is our most important ally in the region. They're one of the strongest democracies, and they are certainly the front line in defending folks right here at home. Now, I've flown combat operations in the Middle East for several decades, and I know exactly the threat that Iran poses, both in arming our most hostile adversaries, Hamas, Hezbollah, and now the Houthi rebels who are firing on U.S. forces. But the reality here is that only the United States and Israel could build this coalition of European partners and Arab partners to stop the onslaught of 300-plus weapons meant to destroy the lives of innocent civilians in Israel. That effectively not only deters them, but it shows a level of strength that Iran will have to compete if they ever want to do this again. It's a dramatic change in tone from Tehran to come after and enter in directly into a war against Israel. I hope that this is their last strike, but I know that the United States standing with Israel is our best deterrent to prevent a larger regional conflict.
Well, there seems to be this feel this morning, Congressman, and I'm sure you've heard this, that the fact that none of these missiles or rockets got through, the fact that no one was killed in Israel, should essentially preempt a military response. There are a lot of folks in Israel who feel differently about this, knowing that if some of those missiles had gotten through, we'd be having a very different conversation today. And the fact that Iran was willing to actually go there, should it be a military response with that in mind?
That's a great question. The point here is we were 99% successful this time. And the concern here is going forward, we have got to stop Iran now moving forward. It's one of the reasons I've led in Congress in making sure that we cut off their funding. $80 billion under this current administration is going directly to Tehran that goes to proxy fighters. Equally important, a number of the sanctions that the Biden administration rolled back months ago are now empowering them with more funding that's directly funding this fleet of drones that are being sent not just against Israel, but against other allies in the region. This cascade of missiles, including cruise missiles that are targeting folks everywhere from Tel Aviv to the Golan Heights to right in Jerusalem itself. This is a real threat. The United States has been a military deterrent in the region, but we also have to be a diplomatic and economic powerhouse in holding Iran accountable from selling its ghost fleet of oil all over the world, particularly to China and other places that are also hostile to us, bringing that money back and then directing it. So I want a whole of government defined strategy here. Congress needs to do its part and make sure that it funds the weapon systems that protect Israelis. But equally, the administration has to have a strategic deterrent that's more than just parking, destroyers off the coast of Iran. We have got to stop the way the mullahs and the Ayatollah are controlling this environment.
Well, let's get into this, Congressman. You said it yourself. The matter of funding is on the front burner in Congress, and there's an important meeting later on today with Speaker Mike Johnson, members of your Republican conference in the House, about how you're going to get to this. There's, of course, an emergency supplemental package that we've talked up and down that's passed the Senate that could come in that form. This could be in several different forms. The Speaker could choose to do all of these one by one. And I wonder your preference. Should it be a $14 billion Israel bill and then come back later to talk about a $60 billion Ukraine bill? Or is it all one vote?
Well, first, I'm very proud of my colleagues in the House moving forward early on this, being able to get funding for Israel that actually took money that would have otherwise been spent on things like hiring more IRS agents to be able to deliver it. Unfortunately, the Senate chose not to take that up. What we know this morning is that folks went to bed on Saturday night in Israel and woke up to a barrage of missile attacks. Iran needs the funding cut from them, and Israel needs U.S. funding now. We have the ability in Congress to move that forward. Now, there is a conversation about a compendium of supporting our allies here. I have very much supported our allies in this region. But let's be clear about what is the most direct need, and that is the ability to resupply Israel today for the weapon systems that kept it safe. That's Iron Dome, that's the F-16s, that's the air-to-air missiles, as well as their ability for things that we don't see behind the scenes, cybersecurity and defense of the area. Most of these weapon systems will be produced right here in the United States. This is a return on investment for both Israel and the American worker.
Well, and of course, the people of Ukraine would probably beg to differ as they see their situation as quite urgent, if not more so, with actual ammunition shortages here. Would you vote for a bill that included both? You mentioned monies going to our defense contractors here in the U.S., and the bulk of that $60 billion for Ukraine would do the same. They're actually running out of ammunition, Congressman. Are you a yes on Ukraine funding?
Yes. So that's exactly why I spoke to both the speaker and the leader to be able to bring both of these items forward. It's a top priority, that along with supporting our allies in Taiwan, as well as border security. All four of these issues are things that we have to address now, and we cannot continue to kick them down the road. The Senate has been just derelict in responding on border security, but there's a direct threat in all four of these areas. It's one of the reasons I've led the ability to help support our allies in Ukraine, not by sending more U.S. tax dollars directly to Kyiv, but by seizing the $300 billion in Russian assets that are right here in Europe and the United States. Help them resupply, provide them those loans that get ammunition directly to the front in Ukraine, support our allies in Israel, but also support the Indo-PACOM theater and stop terrorists coming across the southern border, directly supported by Iranian elements. In the same way that the Middle East has been under attack from these insurgents, we've got to be able to defend our own country on the home front. These four together are not only a good common sense national security solution, they're what money for national security is intended for. And let's begin by doing that conversation today and not waiting any longer.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds a lot like that Senate bill that passed. Congressman, there's a threat hanging over your speaker's head. Marjorie Taylor Greene says you go for Ukraine funding.
Yeah. So the one thing I'll say differently is the Senate bill did nothing for the southern border of the United States. And I am all for helping our allies.
So you'd like to see a different border package. I understand. Slightly different language on the border. What if your boss gets fired on this, Congressman? Do you believe Marjorie Taylor Greene would trigger that motion to vacate if Mike Johnson brings Ukraine to the floor?
So, you know, I had this conversation with Speaker Johnson. And as a veteran of multiple tours in Afghanistan, I handed him two bullets. One was the shot that was taken that ended up saving American lives. The other round was a shot that was not taken that resulted in, U.S. forces coming under greater attack. Whenever we have the opportunity to help our allies, to help defend the country, I told the Speaker, take the shot. I believe firmly that Speaker Johnson is going to do the right thing to protect American citizens. And at the end of the day, if that means jeopardizing his career to do the right thing, I stand 100% behind him.